Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, Dylan Fix. Nice to have you, nice to meet you. Today's topic, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, why do I feel the need to keep coming back to this topic and defending this movie? After all, this is the fourth video that I've made defending this movie. And to be perfectly honest with you, two of those videos I can't even really stand to watch myself because I don't necessarily like the way I went about doing those videos, because I feel like it brought me down to the same level as probably the most toxic members of the fan base, because I feel like I can make a point without being a dick. I'm not going to take those videos down because I believe in everything that I said and I stand by it. I just don't really like the way that I said it. So hopefully if I can make another video that's as even tempered as the last one I did, it'll just even me out. Also, if you take just a moment to look around on the internet, you'll literally be buried by an avalanche of websites and videos dedicated to just ripping this movie apart. And frankly, what I've found is that a lot of the criticisms people have about this movie can fairly easily be debunked if you just take a moment to really deconstruct their arguments and really think about what they're saying. And I've brought a lot of my answers to the people who ask these kind of questions, and usually they either never get back to me, or when they do reply, they end up cussing me out, which I usually take as a sign that I've somehow, some way, shape, or form gotten their goat. I can't imagine how. And when I do videos on defending a movie like this, I try my best not to rely on mental gymnastics or overcomplicated theories. I try to go on just how I see the movie is presenting the information to me. So today I'll be debunking 3 more of the biggest questions about Star Wars: The Last Jedi. So with all that being said, let's get started. Question 1. How does Leia survive getting sucked into the vacuum of space? Now, whenever I have a conversation with someone about this question, usually it boils down to scientific inaccuracies, where they'll say something along the lines of, well, she shouldn't have survived the explosive decompression. So what people are saying with this question is a reason why I don't like this Star Wars movie is because of its scientific inaccuracies. Now, despite the fact another YouTube channel called Because Science did, in my opinion, a really nice episode about a lot of the scientific inaccuracies that people have pointed out about this movie, and actually talked about how they actually did fall reasonably in the realm of scientific logic. So I could just end this question there, but I wanted to give you guys my own personal outlook about how I go in looking at any Star Wars film. And you can either accept his, mine, or both. But when it comes to this question, I really didn't want to have to make this kind of statement this early in my video, but if we take that mindset of disliking a Star Wars movie because of scientific inaccuracies, I'm not sure what other kind of conclusion I can come to other than the possibility that you're probably just not that big of a Star Wars fan to begin with. And no, I'm not saying that like, oh, what, you don't like the Star Wars movie I like? Well, that must mean you're just not a Star Wars fan. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that if we take that mindset and apply it to other Star Wars films, then by that logic, there isn't any other Star Wars movie you can like, because none of them are scientifically accurate, because the franchise is literally built on the concept of space wizards and ghosts. Scientific logic went straight out the window with that. And if I'm going to cap off on this question, I'd like to leave you with the following information. Qui-Gon gets stabbed in the gut with a lightsaber, and he dies soon afterwards, and we all accept this. Maul gets cut in half in relatively the same area and then falls down a deep dark hole and survives, and we all come to accept this. Anakin gets his limbs cut off and his entire body set on fire as he lays next to a river of lava, and he survives this, and we accept it. Leia gets sucked out of her ship and uses the Force to pull herself back, after which she remains in a coma for most of the movie.
Well, then everyone loses their minds.
People survive crazy shit in Star Wars. You're just going to have to come to accept that. Next question. Question 2. Why was Luke trying to kill Ben? Now, this question usually comes from the often used statement from pissed off fans that Luke's portrayal in this movie is a complete betrayal of his character that we've come to know and love, because Luke would never have tried to kill Ben and would have done anything and everything to try to bring Ben back to the light side of the Force. Now, for the first part of that statement, I'm going to chalk that up to being lost in translation, because that's exactly what Luke tries to do. And it's proven through the flashback scenes. Now, the true beauty and brilliance of those flashback scenes is that each one of them is a depiction of the truth, because the truth does not necessarily mean fact. In the first flashback we get from Luke, he tells Rey that he went to go and confront Ben, and Ben attacked him. That was the truth. Then you hear Ben's side of the story, and that he was suspicious of Luke's jealousy of his growing power, and then he wakes up to find Luke standing over his bed in the middle of the night with his lightsaber activated. So when Ben activates his lightsaber and strikes out at Luke, he thinks he's doing so in self-defense. This is also the truth. All of those things did happen. And then finally, in the last flashback Luke gives, we learn the full story. Luke goes into Ben's room to confront him about his growing attraction to the dark side, as we all agree he would do so. But before he wakes Ben up, he uses the Force to look into Ben's mind and see into his possible future, just to see what he's dealing with, to see how bad it is. When he does so, his mind is immediately flooded with all this horrible imagery of a possible future to come, where Ben becomes Kylo Ren, basically the New Age Darth Vader, and leads to the death of pretty much millions, if not billions, of people. And I know it's easy to be detached from a fictional universe's problems where all the deaths don't really matter because they don't really happen. None of the people who die actually are dead in real life. But in Luke's universe, it's actually kind of a big deal. And while he's seeing all this horrible imagery, his Jedi instincts and training kicks in and tells him to kill this shit before it has time to grow and spread, and he activates his lightsaber on instinct.
Snoke had already turned his heart. He would bring destruction and pain and death at the end of everything I love because of what he will become. And for the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it. And for the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it.
But then he immediately stops himself when he realizes what he's doing. But by that point, Ben had already woken up and rushed to his own conclusion and turned on Luke in that very moment. It was a case of horrible bad timing. Luke at no point wanted to kill Ben or tried to kill Ben. He even yells out in this scene here, so what kind of logic would it be for him to yell out, "Ben, no," if he was actually there to kill him? "Ben, no, please, let me kill you. It will make my job so much easier." And moving on to the other part of the problem where Luke would never have actually given up on trying to get Ben back to the light side of the Force. Put yourself in Luke's position for a moment and answer me this. How would you go about turning Ben back to the light side of the Force if he will deliberately refuse everything and anything you have to say to him? Specifically because you're the one that's saying it. This is the case of Kylo Ren. Kylo will refuse everything Luke has to say because he specifically doesn't want to be saved, especially by Luke. He even mocks this idea in their final confrontation against one another.
Say you forgive me. To save my soul.
No.
This is Kylo saying, I know what you would say, and I do not care. Nothing you can say will change me or bring me back. And Luke comes to understand this. He is not the one that's going to be able to turn Ben back to the light, but maybe someone else can. Question 3. How is Rey able to fight toe-to-toe against Snoke's guards along with Kylo Ren? For this question, I'd like to make a comparison to Luke from the original trilogy. Throughout all 3 movies, we never see him get any kind of formal combat training at all whatsoever. The one time he activates his lightsaber on Dagobah with Yoda during his training, even Yoda tells him he will not be needing his weapons. So clearly this is not meant to be a combat training situation. He then goes on to fight Vader and then gets his ass kicked, at which point the movie ends. And based on what I've been able to find, at the point of which The Empire Strikes Back ends to the point where Return of the Jedi begins, only several months have passed. At which point we see Luke using his lightsaber more, he's far more confident with it, and we just assume that he has gotten more combat training, though we receive no confirmation or reference to this at all. So just to be clear with what I'm saying, if we go on the idea that Luke received nothing but combat training for the remainder of those several months, that still shouldn't supersede the literal decades of combat experience Vader would have under his belt, but Luke still wins. So how does he do it? Well, I think we can all agree in Luke and Vader's final confrontation of one another, Luke finally taps into the dark side to essentially overpower Vader with sheer force rather than personal skill. And we see in future Star Wars add-ons that the Force, when wielded with someone able to control it, grants them superhuman abilities other than just levitating objects, such as superhuman speeds, amazing acrobatic abilities, and in some cases, superhuman strength. Now take all that information and apply it to Rey. If you'd like a quick summary of this whole thing, just apply the following. Who has the greater advantage? The Space Wizard or the not Space Wizard? Case closed. And that concludes today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you feel like I've earned it, please give me a like and subscribe. I hope with these explanations that I've given, it's at least helped open your mind a little bit more and look at things from a different point of view, and hopefully maybe help you appreciate the film a little bit more. And don't worry, this will probably be the last review I do of this movie for the foreseeable future, unless deliberately asked for. Or at least until, episode 9 comes out, and then all this bullshit starts all over again. Let's be honest, there's There's going to be a boycott. It's coming. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.